To tune into your channel update, fast forward to the 20-minute mark and 30 seconds. But for those who need help with the default settings in SewWhat Pro, they're quite simple once you learn the hang of them. So stay tuned for your default settings in SewWhat Pro. We are bringing you another SewWhat Pro tutorial. SewWhat Pro is an embroidery design editing software program. Today's tutorial will benefit those who machine embroider or wish to learn more about it. You should already have an embroidery machine and have purchased embroidery designs to fully benefit from this video. We are going to focus on the default settings in SewWhat Pro. SewWhat Pro comes with default settings that you can customize to make your embroidery design editing more comfortable for you. Let's get started. Hi guys, we are going to delve into some of the default settings that you find in SewWhat Pro. This is to make using the SewWhat Pro program a lot easier for you. SewWhat Pro is so user friendly. We really want to make sure that you get the most out of the program and avoid some of those frustrating pitfalls that make it a little difficult to figure out where to go or what to do next, especially if you come up with a problem. Sometimes the default settings are where you want to go so that you can make the necessary changes to get the program back to the way you had it before. Let us start in SewWhat Pro with the views. So if you go up to the title bar, this main toolbar up at the top, we want to go into view. So let's click there. When you go into view, one of the first things that you see is the option for toolbars and docking windows. So you have standard, you have rotation bar, and you have the show bar. Well, these three options are basically talking about this toolbar here with all of the icons. It's also talking about this down here, which is where you can rotate or adjust your pattern by reflecting it mirror or back to top to bottom. And it's also talking about this toolbar here over to the right where you can watch your show stitch out. It shows basically your embroidery design stitching out so that you'll know where you may want to edit it or where you can set the pattern to change a color, for instance, or cut a pattern, for instance. So let's go back into the view. And to show you how that works, if you uncheck standard, say for instance, you log into SewWhat Pro and you don't see that toolbar up here, all you have to do is go to view and make sure that your check boxes are here to bring your toolbars back. So that's the first thing we wanted to cover. Another thing we want to cover under view is come down here and look at the grid lines, the jumps, grid labels, snap to grid, stitch points, and texture. These options are for your current embroidery design in your current window for working on an embroidery program. You can make those changes here about your grid and how the embroidery design shows up in your window where you're doing your editing. So for instance, with this one, you don't see any grid lines in the background. So is the embroidery design centered correctly? Do I want to move it up or down some? So let's put our grid lines there. So when you put a check mark there, there are your grid lines. If you want to take away these labels on the side, these lines of measurement, well, you can uncheck grid labels and those go away. You may not need them. Another view option is snap to grid. So what this does is this makes sure that your pattern is always snapped within the grid lines and they are lined up perfectly with the grid lines. That saves you the aggravation of having to make sure that things are lined up just so. I don't particularly care to use that myself, but you may find it helpful. You also have stitch points and you have texture. Well, in order to see the stitch points, we have to take the texture off. So texture refers to how it looks on the screen. We want to take the texture off so that you can see the stitch points. So the texture shows what it's going to look like when you actually, what it should look like rather, when you stitch it out on the embroidery machine. So if you take the texture off, now it looks like the actual stitches and how the machine sees it and how the machine is going to stitch it out. Now, stitch points are kind of difficult to see when we're not zoomed in extremely close. You can kind of see them a little bit, especially around the edge of his ear. Well, let's zoom in. So down here, we'll go down to the zoom in bar. So if you ever want to get in closer on your pattern, you come down here in the lower kind of right hand corner and we can click this and drag it over. Or you can click the plus mark, which takes it a little bit longer, but you zoom in smaller increments. By dragging it, we zoom a lot faster. And these little squares are your stitch points. That's where the needle goes in and out of the fabric at every interval where a stitch is placed. So you can actually hide those where you don't see any of those stitch points. That is an option that's available to you. So we'll put that back for the time being. And let's zoom back out. The next point we want to cover is in the options toolbar. So let's click here. So when you go to options, let's go to files because there are some great default settings in here that you can adjust to your liking. So click files and notice this first tab says file open. So what this first option with the checkbox gives you is as soon as you open an embroidery design, it's going to automatically center it in the middle of your grid, your hoop that you're working with. So you can have that selected so that by default, every time you open a pattern, it goes centered in the middle of your grid. Also down here, hoop selection. The hoop selection options are you use the hoop specified in the embroidery file, or you use the default hoop for opening all files. This option is helpful for when you purchase an embroidery design that someone else digitized. They may have a machine that has a bigger hoop. So when they digitize the embroidery design, they may have digitized it on a much larger hoop, say 5x7 for instance. Well, I don't have a 5x7 option on my machine. So if I pull in their embroidery design, it may pull up a really big hoop that I don't have. So when I send it to my machine, it doesn't show up. Well, this option will fix that problem. You can use the hoop that they specified when they created the design, or you can automatically have it use the default hoop that you use most often with Sew What Pro. Now, the one, of course, that I use is 4x4 because that's the biggest, for the most part, that I can do. So I set my default hoop here, and this is where you want to click to select what the hoop is that you use the most in Sew What Pro. You're always free to change those options up here with the black outline but green in the center hoop option up here, where you can change to other hoops as you need to. But the main one that you use the most, you can set it as default here if you would like. Now the next tab up here is File Merge. Now I talk about merging in designs all the time in a lot of my other videos because I do like to merge, like I did here with this pattern. This teddy bear is one pattern, but I merged in these letters to spell out the baby's name. So on File Merge, you can auto resize the hoop to fit the merge pattern. So say this teddy bear was 5 inches versus the 4x4 that I have. I can have it set up where whenever a larger pattern is merged over, it automatically reverts me to a larger hoop or sends me to a larger hoop. I don't do that because I want to be sure that it's going to fit my smaller 4x4 like I need it to. Or, which is the other option, retain the hoop of the pattern into which the merge file is added. So I'm going to be working with a 4x4 pattern. That's what I want it to stay no matter what I put on or merge into Sew What Pro. So I want to make sure that it stays 4x4. So that's why I have that option selected. And then down below, merged file placement. So whenever you pull a file into Sew What Pro to add to something that you're already working with in the Sew What Pro interface, you can have it preserve the distance from the hoop center, or you can have it merge into the upper left-hand corner, which could be helpful, or you can have it centered in the merged hoop. So that's up to you where you want your merged file to come in when you first open it. Now, of course, once it's there, you can drag and move it to wherever you want on the hoop and it'll move to wherever you place it. But when it first populates in Sew What Pro on your desktop in the grid that you have selected as default, it will go to whichever one of these options you would like. That's the purpose of this section here. The next option is file save. Now this one is pretty important because every time you make a design or you merge designs or you edit a design, you want to save it as the edited design that you want. Well, without having to constantly change and figure out what file extension you want to use, like my brother is PES, so I constantly use that. That's actually the only file that I really work with. Well, that's my default save as file extension. So in order to change that, this is where you would come. You would go under options and then file. And then down here below in this third tab, you're going to tell it to use your default extension. And you can select which one belongs to you in this drop down box. And then now every time you save a file pattern or a pattern embroidery design, then it's going to save as your default choice. Let's go back into options this time. And what we're going to do is go into file associations. This one is very helpful, especially if Sew What Pro is the only program that you use. It's also helpful if you use another program as well, and we'll show you the options for the two. Now, if Sew What Pro is your only design editing software program that you use, well, for the most part, no matter what embroidery design you purchase or you put into your computer, you want Sew What Pro to open it up for you so that you can work with the program. You can work with that particular file. So you want to select all and make sure that all of these designs will show up whenever you open them in Sew What Pro. That makes it easier for you. Anytime you get an embroidery design, these are the extensions that are out there. It's going to open up for you in Sew What Pro. That's beneficial for me because I only use PES. But if someone is selling an embroidery design that's like DST, for instance, well, I know that I can open it with Sew What Pro and then save as my file extension PES, and I'll be able to stitch it out on my machine. Sew What Pro is awesome for that. It's awesome. It allows me to use any type embroidery design that's out there, and I can change it to one that my machine uses. Now, if Sew What Pro is not your only embroidery design editing program, say for instance you use Sew What Pro for a brother machine, but you use another program that may be out there for your Janome machine. Well, you can have it set up where only the Janome extension opens with that program for that machine. All the other programs open up with the Sew What Pro so that you can use them on the other machine. But of course, I know most of you will only be using Sew What Pro. So we're going to have all file extensions open up in Sew What Pro. Now we'll go back into options. Another default is the grid. Now this one's pretty simple, but it's also helpful. Here you can change your spacing to whatever you want. You can have it spaced to where it's by 1 inch increments, and you can set your grid with that. Or you can have it as small as an eighth, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm sorry, a 16th. So you can make the squares as large or as small as you need in this instance. It goes from 1 inch to 1/116th. So you can adjust your pattern or your embroidery design as intricate as you possibly can by changing your grid size. So that's where that option is for changing your grid. And you can also have your grid, like in this instance, my grid is set, the squares are set to be in back of the pattern, or you can have it set to be on the front of the pattern. It's entirely up to you. And you can set your thicknesses here and how dark your grid shows up on your desktop. We also want to go into options, and we also want to check out the project tab. So when you go into project, this is where you set your default threads. My main thread that I use is Madeira thread. Madeira is listed in, and you have so many others, so many options. I would suggest selecting the one that you use the most. I use Madeira the most because the thing is, no matter what default thread you have listed, when you come here, you do have the option to change it down here where your thread color palette is. And this, notice now it's gone. To have your threads down there pop up, you just select one of your thread color stops and it pops up down here so that you can change the color to whatever you need to down here at the bottom. And say, for instance, this particular color is not my Madeira, it's a different, say it's a Robinson Anson, then I can select that and it will change to the corresponding color under Robinson Anson or as close to it as possible. And then once you have that list populated, you can actually choose the exact thread in that list. So that's the purpose for your thread palette here in the options window and under project. Also under units, you can change here from American to metric. As I mentioned before, your grid labels are here to cut them on and off. Well, right now, mine are listed in inches. So if I wanted to change that to metric, this is where I would come and change it to metric. Your languages is here right now. There's only English. So these are your default settings that you have listed in So What Pro. One other really important option or default that's here that you can change is whenever you're working with a program, you can actually leave notes and comments on your embroidery design and you can save them. Where you would leave those is over here. And this is how, if you look over here and you can't see this comment tab, because sometimes your screen will be over and like this and you can't see your comments tab. Well, in order to find it, you just slide this bar over and make this bigger. You can actually drag it over quite far so that you can have room to type in whatever comments you need to type in order to make sure that you remember. Like, for instance, one of the things I like to use the comment tab for is to remember exactly what font I use to put in a design. I'm bad about forgetting what font I used. Oh my goodness. I'm like, right now, I really don't know what font this is. And that's sad, but I have so many fonts. It makes it a little difficult. So I use that for reminding myself what font I use. I also use this comment tab sometimes for if there's another color thread that I may use, but I want the main thread that was the first option, so to speak, I could put that here. But say the next time I run the pattern, I want to choose the different color, I put that over here. So that's another option for the comment section. But either way, you're able to freely type in comments and save them in So What Pro. You want to make sure that your comments will save. You need to go to options and under project and down here auto save color text file. That's what this is here, and you want to make sure that that's under save so that you can make sure that your information is saved whenever you type something in the comments section. So that's it. Those are your default settings There are many other choices that you have in Sew What Pro, but those are your basic defaults that most people have trouble with. So I hope this video was helpful for you. Sew What Pro is a phenomenal embroidery design editing software program. It's very affordable for those who are beginning in the field of embroidery. It's a very powerful program. There's a lot of detailed editing that you can do with embroidery designs that ordinarily you wouldn't be able to do without an embroidery design editing program. If you don't have one and you have an embroidery machine, about the only thing you can do is get an embroidery design and load it into the machine, and you're not able to make personalization changes to it. But with Sew What Pro, that puts you in the driver's seat to be able to make the necessary changes that you need to personalize an embroidery design. So if you're interested in purchasing Sew What Pro, I do have a link down below that you can click to go directly to their website to make that purchase. If this video was helpful to you, please give the video a thumbs up. If you would, please consider subscribing to our channel. I love my subscribers. I am grateful for you guys. I am floored and humbled. Over 750 subscribers now. It's crazy. I didn't expect it to get that much or gain that much momentum. So I look forward to hearing and interacting with you all. You leave comments. I appreciate that. I respond to all of my comments, and I look forward to interacting with everyone because that lets me know that you're benefiting from the channel. And that's the whole point. We want to make sure everyone has happy embroidery. We want to make sure that everyone is having a great time when they're out there creating. So I want to thank you for taking the time to subscribe and being here a part of the Baby's Booty family on our channel. Thank you very much. So if you would, and you're not a subscriber yet, go ahead and subscribe. It doesn't hurt. I don't put out content like every 5 minutes, but I do try to get a video out on a weekly basis based on business, however, and that's the next thing I wanted to address. And I don't want to take up too much of you guys' time, but I wanted to apologize. Last week I was unable to get a video out. Last week was crazy. It was completely hectic. I had a huge order to Japan for a soccer team. So it was 26 towels, 26 keychains, 5 lanyards, and 26 headbands. 26 headbands, and all of it, with the exception of the lanyards, had embroidery on it. So I put all of that together, and the lanyards were handmade. So even though they weren't embroidered on, they were still handmade. I had that. I had 3 baby orders. I had corporate orders with patches, with ball caps, with t-shirts. I've been doing t-shirts for 2 different companies, patches for 2 other companies. It's been crazy. Then on that Saturday, last Saturday, I had a trade show where I set up my table. I have a short video of that on Instagram and Facebook, where I went Facebook Live and videoed some of the parts of the trade show, the small trade show that I was at, and I had a ball. I enjoyed myself thoroughly. And for that, I did a lot of embroidery on, well, I did a couple of shirts for logos on embroidery for the trade show. So the embroidery part of the Baby's Booty has actually exploded. It's not just baby gifts anymore. Now I'm having to encompass just regular embroidery, and I love it. I love the diversity of the different things that I am able to be a part of, and it's wonderful. I love it. And that was Saturday. Then Sunday, I had a new grandbaby to be born, a little girl. So I am just, oh my goodness. Last week was just videos. What's a video? I had too much going on. As a matter of fact, earlier this week, my body told on me, and I wound up having to spend a couple of days in bed. One of the things that I may not have mentioned before with you guys is I have fibromyalgia, actually. So I'm limited on what all I can do. And if I do too much, my body lets me know and it shuts down on me. So last week I had several shutdown days where the only thing I could do was just be in bed. And so that gives my body time to recuperate and get me back to where I can actually function. And thus here I am, I'm back and I'm in front of the video camera, and I appreciate you guys' patience on me not getting to get a video out last week. And I apologize. I had a lot going on. So now we're back in the saddle and we're putting out today's video. However, in the near future, we have a couple of new things that we're going to be offering you guys, and I'm really excited about it. And in addition to offering you guys some things, I also have another video in the plans to make on another endeavor that I've tried with the embroidery. I'm really excited because that's turned out just like so cool. It's been really cool, and I'm excited to show you guys about that. A lot of you may already know about it, or you may know about it but haven't tried it. So I want to show you guys me delving into that, and there's a giveaway associated with it. So it's like, wow, just a lot of really cool things in the works by just expanding what I do in the field of embroidery and being able to share it with you. That's the whole point, my family. I love you all, and I want you guys to have just as much fun as I'm having with this embroidery. So I look forward to sharing more with you here shortly. So again, I appreciate the questions and the feedback that I'm receiving, good and bad. It's phenomenal. I love it. I try to be sure that I answer all of your questions. So if you have any questions, please, please, please send them to me, whether it be on Facebook, whether it be on Instagram, whether it be here in the comment section, or there's even a way to send a private message on YouTube. I just found out. So if it takes me a day or two to respond, sometimes I'll get a message in, I think it's Facebook, that if I'm not your Facebook friend, it goes to like some kind of hidden awaiting approval section. And I think Instagram does the same thing. No, Instagram I'm public, so I should get the message. But on Facebook, if I don't get the message, give me a day. I try to get to my messages and check that hidden section as much as possible. But if I see it, I'll definitely respond. So if you have a question or a suggestion for a video, or you just want to reach out and say, hey, I've watched your video, this is what I think. Cool, I'm all for it. I appreciate it, because that lets me know I'm doing my job and what I'm supposed to do, because it's my goal to make sure that everyone who delves into embroidering has a great time and has as less frustration as they possibly can. Because when I first started and I didn't know where to turn or who to talk to, my goodness. So this YouTube thing is awesome. I'm a visual person. I love to see and watch things as it's being done. So here I am. And that's my goal for you all. I'll be the face for teaching you things for embroidery. So I greatly appreciate you taking the time to tune in. So that being said, I definitely want to say 750 subscribers. My goodness, I can't emphasize that enough. I'm thankful. I really am, and humbled. So I appreciate it. I really do. I really do. So I look forward to sharing new things with you all. Again, hopefully next week we won't have as hectic a week as we did last week. This week coming up, and we'll do more things together. Also, check me out on Instagram. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter. And what I generally do is share on Instagram and splice it over to Instagram. I'm on Instagram and splice it over to Facebook and Twitter. And then sometimes I post on Facebook exclusively. So it just depends. But in the upcoming event that I have going on, we'll definitely make sure that all of those avenues are available to everyone so that we can expand our little embroidery family. How cool is that? Alrighty, you guys. Well, I appreciate you tuning in today, and I look forward again to sharing more with you. And until the next time I get a video out there and you guys tune in, You know the deal and what we want for everyone. Happy embroidering. Click here to subscribe to our channel. Click here to view other videos in our tutorial playlist. And click here for the next video that you should find helpful. Thank you.